The moment Higurashi When They Cry Go was announced, I was super excited, thinking to go back into the world of Higurashi. I love the Higurashi series a lot, so when I started watching this new iteration, at some point I realized this is not a retelling, this is not a remake, this is quite possibly a sequel, which makes sense to the story itself, so it didn't shock me too much, but at the same time, it also gave me the heavy desire to really go back and reacquaint myself with the series. So I pretty much said to myself that I was going to stop watching Go and really kind of dive back into the original series to kind of refresh myself. And so this is pretty much a full spoiler discussion about the original 2006 Higurashi When They Cry, Higurashi When They Cry Kai, and Rei, and nothing to do with Gou or Sotsu, so keep that in mind. This is really just me kind of discussing my journey, and that's really all it is. But like I said, full-on spoilers for those older series as I get ready to start diving back into Gou and Sotsu. So yeah, with that said, let's really dive into this. It's funny because there was several things that I still remember about the original series. One, it's a lot of dying and repeating. Two, Rika had something to do with the kind of trigger point. 3, Sadako is really annoying. 4, be careful what you eat. And 5, Hanyu is absolutely adorable. But it's funny because even, I guess technically you do chop this up as it being, around 15 years ago that I actually watched this. It's funny how much I don't remember beyond the first part of the second season. I remember all the restarting. I remember Rika basically being the trigger point, them essentially going through all these deaths over and over again. I remember the early parts of the second season getting a perspective of the adults looking back on essentially everybody dead and trying to figure out what happened, really getting into like the conspiracy theories of it all, the cover-ups and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was pretty much a majority of the second season, but in actuality, the second season's more about Takano. And not just Takano, but really Rika's perspective with the help of Hanyu, who is this goddess. And that's really where I started going like, wow, I don't remember this as much as I used to. But it's still, even to this day, I'm surprised how much I loved it. Now, I did have times where, because the difficulty you have with a series like this is the death and restart thing. It's similar to, the Groundhog Day aspect. It's similar to the ReZero aspect, where, yes, the concept of retreading steps is kind of annoying. Re-hitting the same dialogue exchanges is annoying. But similar to, ReZero is a perfect example, getting a different perspective is always the refreshing thing. And technically with the first season, a lot of it is, okay, now this person is being affected by this disease, and they are now in critical state, level 5, whatever they call it, and now they're the one that is, super suspicious of everybody, seeing everybody as being crazy, and that they're not crazy, and that everybody's trying to kill them, until eventually they do unspeakable things. Whereas the second season's more about, okay, we need to figure out how to stop Rika from dying, and getting a backstory about what is actually the cause of all this. Takano, this crazy chick. I still hate the fact that they try to redeem her at the end. It's like, no, it's just get rid of this chick, put her in jail or something. But no, it is a fascinating thing, the retreading of the same story, and always getting a little more details about everything that kind of lays out the perspective of, yes, the very beginning of it, well, technically the very, very beginning of it is Hanyu as this lady a long time ago telling her daughter to kill her for the sake of the sins of the people, her becoming this goddess that passes on this bloodline preventing people from leaving and putting in effect things that prevent them from essentially having any types of disagreements. Like, they keep stray the concept of having any sort of combativeness between each other just because it would entice this disease or this curse, until eventually the point where we get to Rika, who is the 8th generation of these women born, that brings Hanyu back into the picture. And that's when we have this repeating, essentially the 1983 segment specifically, but essentially her lifespan that is repeated over and over again until we get to where we're at right now with the story being told, is what she is essentially losing so much of her power that her time that she gets to reset is getting shorter and shorter. I think at the very end, it's like literally 2 weeks that she gets to work with to try to band people together to, one, prevent anybody from dying, anybody from showing elevated sickness, but at the same time, figuring out who's trying to kill her and stop them, because Rika always forgets what she did in the previous memory. She just knows that she does it over and over again. And I think a lot of those resets are kind of focusing on different families that were kind of all involved, the 3 major families specifically, and also Keiichi, who is involved with it as well, and their perspective of seeing how this curse affects them each separately. Getting into the Mion Shion's family, getting into Sadako and the Hojos, getting into Rika and the bloodline. Again, getting into Keiichi, who is really essentially at the addition from outside. I guess technically Reina as well. Reina was technically there to begin with. She left, had the effects of the curse, came back to the town, and then had this situation with her father and this Badger game that was being played on her. But like I said, I really enjoyed going back into this because, like I said, I didn't really remember much of Takano. And which is odd because Takano is technically the crux of everything. Her, essentially all the crap that she went through till eventually getting involved with this Takano, this doctor who was essentially trying to figure out this curse that, was obvious in play when the people from this Hinazawa went to war, experienced being separated from Rika, went crazy, and he was trying to prove it. And that all began this stupid political... And this is where my main interest in really getting back into the series was really to find out what possibly will come into play with Gou and with Sotsu. And I'm already seeing one major thing that was unanswered. It's the governmental addition to the story. That aspect, while I don't really necessarily think it's the better of the entire story, it's not like I care about the politics, it was technically the reason why it all happened. It was this political fight that was happening behind the scene following the death of Takano and this, I forget the other guy's name, the one that was working with her through this whole situation, Mio. But Nomura was this lady that worked with Takano that eventually betrayed her, and she was obviously a key role, but she was never shown again after the point that Mio failed. Obviously, especially with Rei. Rei was the 3rd season, a quick 5-episode OVA. Technically most of that's really kind of goofy stories. But one major segment of it is having Rika essentially come to terms with the fact that she's no longer this witch. Or at least she claims that she's no longer this witch. She has to shed this mentality that death is only a restart. And so she does something really stupid. She gets herself killed, and then she relies on Hanyu to pretty much reset it. And she ends up going into another world completely, realizing what she left behind, and that she can no longer rely on this power anymore. And at the very end, Hanyu pretty much makes a statement, and it's kind of implied that it's what she really means, that she gave Rika a dream. This whole thing was a dream to instill this idea that to love her parents. Like, she always gave up even having any kind of affection with her mother during the resets because she knew her mother was going to die. And additionally, what Rika got from it was this idea of not relying on the power anymore and no longer being this witch anymore, becoming herself, becoming Rika the child again, going on with her life and enjoying life again, which is extremely sad because in retrospect, watching this series again going, oh, wow, technically at this point, Rika believed that it was over. And Rika was happy. And I guess that's technically the whole gist of the restarting things up again, is that sad aspect that, no, Rika, it's not over. I don't know what's in Gou and what's in Sotsu, but I'm assuming it's going back into this reset. If that is the gist of Higurashi, that is what their thing is always going for. Now, I could be completely wrong. Gou and Sotsu can be completely one continuous timeline. I'll find out when I get into it. But it is interesting to kind of get this idea that, again, Rika thought it was done and over with. She was giving up this idea of being this witch that can just return back time, having this power of Hanyu to really utilize, and moving on with her life to be what she wanted to be, finally to grow up and be an adult. She's been stuck in this body for, I think she said thousands of years, maybe hundreds of years, redoing this segment over and over again, and now she can move on with her life. The other fun thing that I did get from rewatching this was I forgot how much emphasis they put onto essentially the paranoia element. because you get it from technically the very beginning. You have Keiichi's story where he begins to think that everybody's out to get him. Everybody's wanting to kill him, to the point where he takes a bat to his friends and kills them, runs off and claws his throat out. And again, you don't really realize until after you've seen a couple resets that, oh, wait, that didn't really happen, did it? They show at some point the syringe that Mion is holding is not a syringe to give him a drug. It was a marker. It was a punishment game. I have a marker. I'm going to mark something on you. And he took a bat to them. And of course, with that particular segment, when he realizes that, he starts apologizing to them, which I think is one of those moments that really sold me on the Higurashi series as a total. When I seen that scene, I got emotional. Like, Keiichi finally realized the reset. Like, he realized he did something terrible to his friends, and he was apologizing for it. And that's, of course, when Rika kind of acknowledges that he remembers. But it wasn't only just Keiichi. Like, the paranoia aspect has always been fascinating to me. I loved essentially seeing how everybody's seen everybody out to get them. Like, getting into Satoshi's story and how he's seen everybody out to get him. Got super paranoid, super stressed out with his sister, to the point where he goes nuts and kills his aunt. Getting into, I mean, even with everybody within the Sonozaki family, like, I could never grasp if they were good people or not. And it isn't until, like, way later, especially in the Kai series, you finally realize, man, this old lady's cool. Like, she does want the whole Hojo thing to go away. They do want to move on. Sonozaki visiting the grave of Hojo and everybody else. It's that idea of the village itself has always been about everybody coming together. That was, a key thing that they got into with Sadako's story in general, was this idea that everybody still held the grudge against Hojo, but everybody individually wanted to get over it. But they were afraid of the others seeing that and not liking it. So everybody thought that everybody had to be against Hojo. And they didn't want to. But the bonds of the village itself was its strength. Like, this idea of them being bonded, and yeah, to the story's credit, to the queen itself, to be a village that's always bonded together, never leaves, never separates, never comes into combat with each other, but always sticking together like a hive. And yet there was all this idea of conspiracy and everybody's out to get everybody. Being a part of that curse was always fascinating. And that was definitely when they had Sadako's story, having Keiichi really kind of solidify that was really cool. He pretty much comes to the villagers and says, or the council, and says, look, this is what Hinamizawa was all about, is banding together to any single person. Throw one rock, throw two more, or something like that. But yeah, still a treat. Loved going back through this entire series. Looking forward to getting into Gou and Sotsu. Still as painful as ever. So many graphical points. I was joking with my brother about the idea that it's so funny how you can see so many extremely gruesome stuff. Like, you could see people mangled. You could see people stabbed to death. You could see people set fire to. But the most painful scene was the fingernail scene. Like, that is the worst. Like, especially her popping half the fingernails. Like, oh my gosh, why is this more painful than anything else? Ugh. I guess it's something that we all have experienced at some point, is hitting a nail, whereas a lot of us haven't really experienced being shot or stabbed or whatever. So it makes sense, I guess. Or a lot of I guess maybe because it's like so many nerves to it, because it's at the end of your fingers or whatever. But as much as I do hate her, Takano did have a lot of crap happen in her life, and I understand. It is one of those things where I do technically understand her. I just hate her. I understand her, but I still hate her. I know what she went through, but she's still a bad person. Yeah, I think a long time ago, I think my favorite girl was Shion. I think she was best girl for me back then when I watched the first time. But I think Hanyu always hold a place in my heart when I got into the Kai series, and I think she still holds there. I only recently put a connection between her and Ganyu from Genshin Impact. I'm wondering if there's a connection there. Oishi was fantastic. I forgot how great of a character he was. It really did surprise me. Granted, Asakasa was probably one of those really great characters as well. Kind of seen I had a similar reaction to him a lot of the cases with Rika, and whenever he showed up, I was like, yes, Asakasa, woo! But yeah, that's my thoughts of my rewatch through Higurashi When They Cry, Kai, and Rei. Like I said, looking forward to Gou and Sotsu a lot. Hope you guys will join me here when I watch Go, I will probably do, and depending on how it lays out, I was actually planning on doing a video once I finish the original series, and then doing a video after I finished Kai, but I figured the way the story kind of played out, there really wasn't a reason to sit there and make a video for each, so we'll see. Once I finish Go, I'll see if it's, worthy to make a video of it, but my goal is to hopefully get completely caught up so that I can do episode by episode impressions, but as it stands now, I'm probably not going to make it in time, but we will see. But I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts of Higurashi, the original series, as I rewatched through it. If you like this video, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of this video and your thoughts of the original series. Please no spoiler for Gou or Sotsu. I'm still going to be watching those. Subscribe if you haven't already. Consider supporting us on Patreon if you can. And y'all take care.